Hello, dear viewers. My name is Dr. John Mohmad Pandit, Assistant Professor at English Department in Institute of Aeronautical Engineering, Hyderabad. Today, I am going to deliberate on the most important topic, that is what is non-verbal communication. We here, first of all, I would like to explain what is communication, and thereafter we will discuss our main topic, that is what is non-verbal communication. Now, before we start, let me tell you what is the literal meaning of this word communication. The English word communication is derived from a Latin word communicare or communis, which means to share, which means to impart, which means to make known to all, or which means to transmit. Therefore, we can say that communication is a process in which the sender shares or transfers his ideas, message, thoughts, feelings to the sender, so that both the sender and the receiver will reach at a mutual understanding. Here, this is important to know. Although this word communication, it is suggestive. It means to share. It means to impart. It means to participate. But one need to understand that communication is a process where a sender shares or transmits his ideas, his thoughts, his feelings, or simply a message to the listener, so that both the sender and the receiver will reach at a mutual understanding. And when this mutual understanding is important. And we can say the function of communication has been fulfilled when both the sender and the receiver reach at a mutual understanding. Before we move further, let us see some definitions propounded by different scholars. What is the first one? Communication is a process of exchanging ideas, thoughts, information, knowledge, etc. between sender and the receiver through accepted codes. Now we will take the first part of the definition. What is the first part of definition? Communication is a process. When we say the process, it means that communication is something that follows certain norms, that follows certain procedures. Or you can say that communication is not anything that happens in white. It's a process. It follows certain procedures. It follows certain norms. And what is the next? It is a process of exchange. It's a process where we exchange our ideas, our thoughts, our emotions, or simply any information. And this exchange takes place between sender and the receiver. That's why two pronouns are very important in communication process. One is who and the second is whom. Who means one, who is the sender. Who is the sender of the message? And the second is whom, to whom he sends, that means the receiver. Therefore, the most important thing is that in any communication process, there must be one sender and one receiver. Sender means a person who sends a message, and the receiver means a person who receives a message. Therefore, in any communication process, there should be at least one sender and one receiver. And this communication process, takes place through accepted codes. You need to understand this accepted codes. Accepted codes mean the words or the language that is common between the sender and the receiver. Or simply you can say the words or signs or the symbols that can be easily understood by the listener. And that's why when the sender sends his words or the message to the receiver should be in a position to understand those signs, understand those words, so that he can decipher the message and give a feedback. Therefore, when we say the accepted codes, it means signs, symbols, which are common between the sender and the receiver, or the signs or symbols which can be easily understood by the listener. Now, look at the second definition. It's propounded by Merriam-Webster. I quote, communication is a process by which information is exchanged between individuals through a common system of symbols, signs, or behavior. Again, here the word exchange is important. This communication, it's an exchange of ideas, it's an exchange of thoughts, feelings between two individuals. Surely one is sender, a person who sends a message, and the second is the receiver, one who receives the message. Therefore, it's the exchange between sender and the receiver. And the exchange of what? It's the exchange of ideas, thoughts, feelings, information, etc. And this exchange takes place through what? Common system of symbols, signs, and behavior. That means the language used by the sender. It must be understood by the listener so that he can decode the message. He can decipher those symbols, decode those symbols so as to reach an understanding level, and at the end he can give a feedback. Therefore, this exchange takes place between this exchange takes place between the sender and the receiver, but through the symbols, signs, and the behavior that are common between the sender and the receiver. Now, look at the next definition. It's propounded by Peter Little. Peter Little defines communication as the process by which information is transmitted between individuals or organizations so that an understanding response results. Again, this communication, it's an exchange of ideas, information, thoughts, knowledge, for that matter, any message between individuals or between organizations, so that those individuals or those organizations will come to a mutual understanding. That the mutual understanding is important. If there's a mutual understanding in communication process, we can say that the communication cycle is complete. Now look at the next definition. It's by Alan Lay. It defines communication, I quote, communication is the sum of all things one person does when he wants to create understanding in the mind of another. It's a bridge of meaning. It involves a systematic process of speaking, listening, understanding, and responding. Now, if you look at the first part of the definition, communication, what's communication? It is the sum of all things one does. Whatever person does in order to communicate with other, we can call it's a communication. And again here, when a person communicates, he actually wants to make he wants to actually wants to create an understanding in the mind of the recipient, that is the receiver, so that receiver can decode the message and give a stable feedback. It's a bridge of meaning. When you say it's a bridge of meaning, that means it connects people. It connects their thoughts. It connects their requirements. It's a bridge of meaning. It involves a systematic process of speaking. These are the different steps of this communication. And again, you need to understand the systematic. Systematic means the where there is a well procedure, well known rules. It's not something that happen in white or that happen in a very haphazard manner. It's a systematic process of what? Speaking. Here, the sender or the receiver or the sender, he speaks. And he speaks, he or you can say that he communicates in different ways. For example, he can make use of words, both verbal and non-verbal and written words, or spoken or written words, or sometimes he can use non-verbal cues also, like gestures, postures, facial expressions, and etc., in order to communicate with the receiver. It's a process of listening, speaking, that, and it's followed by listening, then understanding and responding. Here, the sender, he speaks, he tries to communicate through verbal words, and the receiver, he listens those verbal words. He not only listens those verbal words, he try to decipher, he try to understand those verbal words so that he can give a feedback, that is respond. Now, now, from these definitions, we come to know that communication is a process of transmitting, exchanging, sharing, what? Sharing information, ideas, thoughts, feelings, emotions through what? Through speech. That means the words, words, or written words, signals, behavior, or writing. Now, it's a brief introduction of communication, but one thing here I want to convey, that is, when we try to define communication, I think we are trying to delimit its scope, because it's such a vast subject, it's such a diverse thing, and when we try to define it consciously or unconsciously, we delimit the scope. And now, it was about the brief introduction of a communication. Now we have types of communication. We have two types of communication. And what are these two types of communication? One is the verbal communication, and the second one is the non-verbal communication. And the non-verbal communication, it's our today's topic. But before coming to this topic, I will like to give a little bit of information about verbal communication. As you know, this word verbal, it's an adjective. It is derived from the verb, and word verb is in turn derived from a Latin word verbum, which means a word. Therefore, we can say verb is a word. Verb means word. And this verbal, adjective verbal, therefore, naturally, it means communication that occurs through words. But when I say the words, it means both spoken and written words. Now, therefore, we can say that verbal communication is a communication where we communicate with others through words, both written and spoken words. Now, today's topic, that is non-verbal communication. And when we say the non-verbal, non means not, and verbal here means the words. The communication that doesn't occur through words, both spoken words or written words. When we say the non-verbal communication, it means the communication that doesn't occur through spoken words or written words. Now, how this communication then occurs? Now, look at this. Nonverbal communication refers to the ways in which human beings convey information about their emotions, needs, intentions, attitudes, and thoughts without the use of verbal language. That is, non-verbal communication. In non-verbal communication, people communicate their thoughts, their feelings, their emotions, etc., without making the use of words, both spoken and written words. Now, if you look at this definition propounded by De Brettol and Martin, they defined communication, nonverbal communication as, I quote, communication by means of elements and behavior that are not coded into words. Again, communication, nonverbal communication is a communication where we do not make use of words, both verbal, that means spoken, and the written words. Now, one thing is clear, in non-verbal communication, we do not make use of words, be it spoken or written. Then what's non-verbal communication? Now, look at this. It is the transfer of information through body language, facial expressions, gestures, postures, created space, and more. Therefore, the non-verbal communication is a communication where we share our ideas, our thoughts, our feelings through body language, like gestures, postures, facial expressions, created space, and more. In non-verbal communication, we communicate through non-verbal clues, and it can be a gesture, it can be a posture, it can be created space, it can be, for example, facial expression, etc. Now, to understand this non-verbal communication, we need to understand these terms. These are the different terms associated with non-verbal communication. What is the first one? Kinesics. Uh, Kinesics means expressive movement of body parts like gesture, posture, facial expression, etc. We will take it later on. First of all, we will see these terms. The second one is haptics. Haptics, when we communicate through touch. And the third one is proxemics. Proxemics means when we communicate through distance. That means when we maintain distance, we communicate while maintaining a distance. Chronomics, it means a time. Okalexics, it means eye movement. Sign language, and then we have the last one, vocalics or paralanguage. It includes tone, volume, pitch, etc. We will take these terms one by one so that we can understand non-verbal communication. The first one is kinesics. This term kinesics, it was coined by anthropologist Ray Barbison in 1952. The word kinesics, the English word kinesics, it is derived from a Latin word kinesis, which means movement. When we say the movement, it means the expressive movement of our body parts that display, for example, our thoughts, feelings, moods, intentions, etc. Therefore, when we see the literal meaning of this word, kinesics, it means the movement, or it means the expressive movement of our body parts. It can be, for example, any gesture. It can be our posture, how we stand, how we sit on a chair. It can be our facial expression. It can be anything that involves our body parts. And this kinesics, it is so common across the cultures that William Wundt calls it universal language. That means this kinesics, it's almost found in every culture. It's prevalent, it's available, or it's present in every culture in such a manner that one would call it a universal language. To make it more precise, it means this kinesics, it involves like gestures. When we say the gestures, it means the movement of our body parts. For example, when I raise my thumb like this, without uttering a word, verbal or spoken word, it conveys that well done, nice, go ahead. Therefore, we can communicate through the body parts, through our body parts. Like, for example, when I move my head like this, it is a sign of affirmation. That means yes. Or when I move my head like this, it means negation. That means a disapproval. And the gestures, or for example, shaking one's fist, it shows anger. And in a similar fashion, we have the posture. Posture means the way a person sits on a chair. For example, if a person reclines too backward on a chair, it gives the message of haughtiness or pride. Or if a person moves too forward while sitting on a chair, it gives or it conveys the message of fear, nervousness. Or the way we stand, or the way we walk, it gives different meanings. In a similar way, facial expressions. We convey different message through our facial expressions. For example, sometime when we are in fear, we wide open our eyes or we raise our eyebrows. Or when we are in surprise, we open our mouth, wide open our mouth. Therefore, through our facial expressions, we convey a lot. And these one, but the important point is that these gestures, they are culture bound. They vary from one culture to another culture. For example, if you are in West and you raise your thumb like this, it is something which is approving. That means it gives the message of well done, nice. But if you make the same gesture in any Gulf country, there they will take it as offense, something disapproving. That's why it's culture bound. That means it varies from one culture to another culture. Before we move to next slide, I would like to sum up this kinesics. Kinesics, as I told you, it is derived from a Latin word kinesis, which means moment. But when I say the moment, it means the expressive moments of our body parts. That means when we communicate through our body parts, it's kinesics, like gestures, postures, facial expressions, etc. Then we have the next one, that is haptics. This English word haptics, it's derived from a Latin word haptic, which means science of touch, or it is derived from a Greek word haptikos, which means able to come into contact with. Therefore, we can say that haptics means touch. When we communicate through touch, we can call it haptics. And this haptics, it refers to the ways in which people and animals communicate and interact via the sense of touch. Therefore, haptics, it means touch. When we communicate through touch, it involves, for example, handshake, pat, slap, hug, kiss, tickle, etc. And in both interpersonal and extrapersonal communication, we make use of this haptics, that is touch. For example, when a teacher pats the shoulder of his student without saying anything, it means well done, keep it up, etc. This is the interpersonal communication between teacher and a student. As you know that this inter means the between or among, the communication that occurs between the teacher and the student. We can call it interpersonal because the inter word, the prefix inter means between. And then we have the next one, that's extrapersonal communication. Yes, we make use of this haptics in extrapersonal communication also. For example, when you rub or pat your pet dog, it naturally wags its tail. Therefore, it's the communication between you and your pet dog. That means the beyond species. That's why extra means beyond. Beyond species. That is a communication between human beings and animals. Therefore, we make this use of touch in both intrapersonal and extrapersonal communication. And the effectiveness of haptics can be measured from forces, elongation, frequencies, mechanical tensions, and shear force. One need to be very conscious while communicating through this touch, because it can be misunderstood. It can turn into a bad touch sometimes. Yes, we have the good touch and bad touch. Therefore, one should be very cautious while making use of this haptics or touch, or while communicating through touch. And this touch, it is so much prevalent, or it is so much available in everyone, both human beings and animals, that Aristotle says, I quote, some classes of animals have all the senses, some only of certain of them, others one, the most indispensable touch. That means this touch, it's prevalent, it's available in everyone. It's available in human beings, it's available in other species like animals. They too communicate through touch. And our next one is proxemics. The word proxemics means distance. Distance that we keep from others during the communication process. Again, this is non-verbal communication. Actually, we maintain distance according to our relationship with the person to whom we are talking with. Therefore, this distance we communicate again, as I told you, that we communicate also through this proxemics, that is distance. And it shows the relationship we share with the receiver or with the subject we are discussing. For example, when we are talking to a person who is very intimate to us, who is very close to us, we maintain little distance as compared to that person who is not close to us. Or when I want to communicate or share some intimate subject to another person, naturally we maintain less distance. Therefore, we communicate through maintaining the distance. Again, this is non-verbal communication. Without saying anything, without uttering a word, both spoken and written word, we communicate while maintaining different distances. Now, to make it more explicit, look at this. On the basis of this relationship, we maintain four types of distance. What is the first one? Intimate distance. And this intimate distance, it's of 18 inches. For example, when I talk to someone who is close to me or my family member, I maintain the distance of 18 inches. That's why it's called intimate distance. In other words, we can say someone who is very near to us, close to us, we maintain less distance him, between us, we maintain little distance. And this maintaining of this little distance, it conveys a lot. It says that it gives the impression to the listener that you are close to me. That's why it's called a non-verbal communication. And this intimate distance, it's of 18 each, as I told you. We maintain this distance while talking to family, close friends, or spouse, and violated, it is violated, and whenever it's violated, we take evasive non-verbal action. It's important to understand. When this intimate distance is violated by someone, we take evasive non-verbal action. The second one is the personal distance, or you can say the casual personal zone. And this personal distance, it's of 18 inch to 5 feet. And our day-to-day conversation, the routine conversation, it takes place in this zone. For example, when I go outside and talk to others, naturally, uh, I maintain the distance of 18 each to 5 feet. That's why it's called the casual personal zone or personal distance. Our day-to-day routine conversations takes place in this zone. And the third one is social distance or consultative zone. And the social distance or consultative zone, it is of 5 feet to 12 feet. And our formal discussions tend to occur in this zone. For example, when a boss talking to an employee across a desk, we can say that it is social distance or consultative zone. Then we have the next one, that is the public distance. It's of 12 feet to 25 feet. And in this zone, public lectures, conferences, etc. takes place. Now, Greg's is that the proxemics, it's all about the distance we maintain while talking to people, and it varies. If someone is very intimate to me, naturally I will maintain less distance. Again, this is non-verbal communication. The next one is the chronomics. The chronomics, it deals with time or use of time or how we perceive time. These three things are important. The first thing is that the chronomics, it's all about time. It's all about the use of time. It's all about how we perceive time. And here the time perceptions include, for example, punctuality, willingness to wait, and interaction. And this time can also figure into communication in terms of attention span and the expression or the reinforcement of power relationship. Now, to make it more explicit, for example, if I have an appointment with any authority and he makes me to wait for 3 hours, and after the completion of 3 hours, he did not meet me, it gives the impression that either this meeting is not important or I am not important for him. That's why this chronomics, it means the time or the use of time or how we perceive time. For example, if a person is punctual, it conveys a message about that person that he is well disciplined. Without saying anything, without uttering a word, spoken or written, he conveys through his this time perception or the maintaining of this time. That's the punctuality. And on the basis of how we perceive time, cultures are divided into two groups: monochronic and polychronic cultures. Actually, it was the Hall who first gave this concept of monochronic or polychronic culture. And here, as he says that all the Western countries, they have the polychronic culture, sorry, monochronic culture. That means there in West, 9 a.m. means 9 a.m. It's never quarter past 9 or half past 9. In other words, we can say they regard this time as a money or this time as a schedule. That means they are, in other words, we can say that they perform one job at one time. And in contrast to this, we have the another term that is polychronic culture. Polychronic culture, according to all the Asian or the African or the Gulf countries, they have polychronic culture. Why? Because at one time they do many jobs. There, the perception of time is different. Therefore, this time, this chronomics, it's all about the time, it's all about the use of time, it's all about how we perceive time. Uh, we have different notions, for example, about punctuality, about willingness to wait, or about interaction. And again, this chronomics, it's a non-verbal communication. Then we have the next one that is oculesics. This is the subcategory of body language. It is the study, or to make it more precise, more exact, it means it's the study of eye movement or eye behavior or eye contact. Yes, of course, we communicate a lot through our eyes. That's why it's the we call it a study of eye movement or eye behavior or eye contact. And this eye contact, it opens communication channels, signal availability for interaction, listening, immediacy, and intimacy. That's why we often say our, for example, students, while speaking, try to make eye contact because we speak a lot through eye contact. And this eye contact again, speaking through eye contact, so non-verbal communication. For example, if I am talking to a person and that person, of course, he's listening my every word, but he doesn't make eye contact. It gives me the impression that person is not serious about my talk. Therefore, this eye contact is very important. But the important point is that this eye contact, it should be modest. It should not be too severe or too hard. For example, if we make eye contact and that eye contact is too hard or severe, it can turn into oogle. It can turn into oogle. What is this oogle? Oogle means to look at somebody or something continuously, constantly with a bad purpose or bad intention. And the important thing is that its absence. That is when we do not make eye contact, absence engenders negative attributions, including, for example, rudeness, deceptiveness, insincerity, unfriendliness, or timidity. For example, naturally, when we do something naughty and we are caught by our parents, we don't make eye contact. We try to hide that matter for our parents. And when we do not make eye contact, it means it shows our deceptiveness. Or for example, when a teacher talks to his student, and that student is not making an eye contact, it gives the sign or the message of rudeness, that the student is rude towards his teacher. Therefore, this eye contact is very important. Or the next one is the sign language. The sign language, it is the manual communication for deaf. Yes, it's very fruitful for deaf people who are not able to hear. And the important thing is it's not universal, it varies from one culture to another culture. And in sign language, our gestures or symbols or signs, they are organized in a linguistic way. If you look at this picture, we have this the third one, C. This is C. Therefore, this sign language, it's organized in a linguistic way. But it doesn't mean that the sign language it's only meant, or it is exclusive to deaf people. We also often make these signs to convey a certain message. Our next one is the paralanguage or vocalics. The first of all, you need to understand the word paralanguage. Because people confuse this paralanguage with verbal communication. And here, if you look at this word paralanguage, para and language. Para means beyond. Language. Here, language means the words, spoken or written words. That means when we speak, uh, without making use of words, it's beyond. Para means beyond. Language here means the words. That means beyond words. Or you can say the vocalics. And this paralanguage, it's a component of meta communication. That's why meta again means the beyond. To make it more exact, paralanguage is our voice minus the words you speak. This is very important to understand. Paralanguage is our voice minus the words you speak. That means the paralanguage is everything without words. And this term, it was first invented by George L. Traeger in 1950s. And how we communicate through paralanguage. This paralanguage, it used the techniques such as presidive, pitch, rate, volume, intonation, pause, silence, etc. Now here, look, we have a word in English, for example, yes. Yes. It means it's a sign of affirmation, something which is approving. But there are different ways of saying this yes. One is yes, means affirmation. I agree. And the second one is yes. Now look at the second one. How I pronounce this yes. And this yes, it gives the different meaning. It means pardon. Would you like to repeat? Therefore, here the words are not important in paralanguage. It is the volume or it is the speed of words that's important. In paralanguage, what we study, we do not study words. We study the rise and the fall of words. That is the intonation. We study the pitch of words. We study the speed of words or the volume of words. And the speed, volume, pitch, or rise and fall of our voice, it's all non-verbal communication. Here our concern is not words. Here our concern is the speed of words, volume of words, pitch of our words, or the rise and fall of our words. That's why we call it non-verbal communication. That's why I told you that paralanguage is your voice minds the words you speak. It's not about words. It's about the volume of words, speed of words. And here in paralanguage, the quality of voice determines the effectiveness of message. Now, look at this advantage and disadvantage of paralanguage. This non-verbal communication. This non-verbal communication. First, we will look at the advantage. Provides clarity. This, for example, this non-verbal communication, if it is context-based, it provides clarity. Second one is reduces wastage of time. Here we don't need elaborate sentences or elaborate paras to communicate our message. That's in this way it reduces wastage of time. And the next one is quick transmission of information. Here we can quickly transmit our message. For example, if someone has done something appreciative, I will put my finger like this, that is well done. Without saying anything, without writing or without constructing sentences, I can transmit my information quickly. The next one is help filter specially abled people. Yes, it's very fruitful for those people who can't listen, who can't hear. For example, as I told you, sign language. It's very important for deaf people. It's through this sign language they can share their ideas, feelings, and thoughts to others. Now, the substitute for verbal language. Sometimes, not always. It it's not only a substitute; it complements verbal language. For example, when I say well done, at the same time put my finger like this, actually this gesture, this thumb gesture, it complements my verbal words. That's why we often say that this non-verbal language, it complements our verbal words. And sometimes we can substitute this non-verbal gestures or cues for verbal language. And now see the disadvantage. Lack of formality. Here we don't have any formality. We can't say this is formal and this is informal. Just here we don't have any formal. Difficult to understand. Sometimes it becomes very difficult to understand a gesture. Long conversations are not possible in this uh, non-verbal communication. We can't make long conversations or long discussions. Meaning varies across cultures, and this is the most important thing. When we talk about the non-verbal communication, for that matter gesture, and the gestures varies from culture to culture. They have different meanings in different cultures. As I told you, raising your thumb, showing your thumb like this in West, it is something which is approving. It means well done, nice. But if you do the same gesture in any Gulf country, they will take it as offense or something which is disapproving. And the next one, distant conversations are not possible. In this non-verbal communication, here the sender and the receiver, they must be close to each other. For example, if I am a sender, my receiver, he must be very near to me or in front of me. Then I can communicate through this non-verbal cues, like gestures, like posture, like my facial expressions. If he is very far away from me, we can't convey this distant conversations through this non-verbal communication. That means distant conversations are not possible in non-verbal communication. It was all about the non-verbal communication. Thank you very much. We will meet again in the next video with another topic. Till then, goodbye.
Like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell icon for more updates.